Hello YouTube, this is Magnitude Gaming here with our next episode covering the history competitive play in Yu-Gi-Oh! I've been getting wrecked at work lately, so I'll hopefully keep uploading, but thank you all for the support. A new format had begun with the April 2006 ban list taking effect. Team Hustle's Steven Nadir had won the previous SJC in the previous format. The previous format revolved around the Warrior engine with Chaos. The format will continue to be defined by Chaos variants. The question that was to be answered was, which one was better? The format was short, as it was only going to last until September of that year. Back then they only had 2 ban lists a year, lasting 6 months. After this, ban lists were released to take effect on March and September of the year. SJC Baltimore had 540 duelists in attendance. The tournament featured a lot of decks, with Chaos Return making a major impact. Graceful Charity being limited had people thinking that Dark World was going to be a viable contender. That didn't happen, however, as the deck had many consistency issues. Mirror Force was back, and duelists were scared of it, so Jinzo was being splashed into decks to play around it. Duelists were free to overextend if this card was on the field. Sway Warrior also made a return surprisingly. It hadn't been around much since the beginning of the Go Control format. With DD Assailant being limited, duelists opted to go back to this card since it was a level 4 searchable warrior with good stats. He could also beat over Cyber Dragon if he was flip summoned. Cool stuff. Spirit Reaper was seeing less play. Towards the end of the previous format, duelists found ways to get around Spirit Reaper. Since many duelists anticipated Dark Worlds to be a thing, many duelists opted to run less copies of it in their decks. So let's get to top 8. I normally use Chris Perovic's metagame site for deck lists, but unfortunately they aren't on there. I used a few other sites. I found some of these off of, I believe it was called Yu-Gi-Oh! Top Decks? That should be the site. Anyways, Jonathan Bounty had previously finished in top 8 at Nationals. This was his first Shonen Jump top 8 finish. Bounty was playing for Team Rampage. This was his first of many top 8 finishes, and he finished 3rd in Swiss, losing to Nareg Tarosian in the final round of Swiss. Bounty's deck played a variety of full effect monsters, and was well prepared for the meta. Since many duelists were playing 2 Nomans, he opted to not maximize copies of certain full effect monsters, or otherwise he'd risk losing all copies of that card to Nobleman. Nareg Tarosian finished 2nd in Swiss, and this was his first top 8 finish since winning SJC Indianapolis the previous summer. He had come close to topping other events, but he finally pulled through as he was determined to prove his critics once and for all that he wasn't a one-hit wonder. He didn't maximize copies on certain effect monsters either, and was taking 2 My Bodies as a shield, likely to play through Zaborg or Mirror Force, maybe both. Roy St. Clair was back, getting his 2nd top 8 finish in the last 3 events, and his 3rd overall. Playing for Team Immortal Technique, he was looking for his first title still. St. Clair was playing a strange but effective Chaos deck. He played Zombra the Dark and Deck Devastation Virus. Deck Devi could be critical if it resolved, destroying many monsters the opponent had. Canada's Chris Patel from Team Extreme was also making his 2nd top 8 finish in 3 events. The Canadian was playing a Chaos deck, more focused on Monarchs, the usual small package. He played Treeborns and Twin-Headed Behemoth. Patel was also sliding a Spell Canceller. Chris Winkler's deck was more focused on Strike Ninja. He made 3 copies of the card. I think his deck was probably most interesting of all these. Many duelists opted to utilize a Monarch engine, and Winkler focused more on Strike Ninja. Steven Kanate of Kamikaze Crew was also in top 8. He played a small Monarch package of 2 Zaborg and a Mobius. Like all other duelists, he was also main decking 2 Nolman of Crossout. Kevin Commander went back to some old trends that were seen in the GOAT format. Big Shield Gardner was one thing for sure, and Air Knight Parasath also rings a bell. Fun fact, I'm positive this guy was more of a Magic player. I looked for his name and that's where I ended up finding his picture, and a couple of other things about him. Last but not least, there's Shane Scurry. Shane was representing Team Scoop. The team hadn't topped any events since Paul Leviton won SJC LA. Scurry was here to bring some momentum back to the team. He main decked 2 copies of Return from a Different Dimension. He also played Mirage Dragon, a great way to play around Mirror Force. These decks will go on to set the tone for the remainder of the format. Top 8 had some very interesting matches. First was Jonathan Bounty vs Chris Patel. It was a clash of 2 of the best players the game had to offer. They went to game 3, and some rough draws from Bounty, but Chris Patel beat him down with Kaiku and win the match. Then Shane Scurry and Roy St. Clair had their own matchup in top 8. St. Clair was taken down by Scurry after Shane slowly began to get advantage through Heavy Storm. St. Clair wasn't ready for his return strategy. Shane Scurry was able to head to top 4. Nareg Tarosian and Steven Kanate played in top 8, and Kanate was able to pull off the upset, taking down the former Shonen Jump champion. Chris Winkler and Kevin Kavanagh were 2 unknowns in the Yu-Gi-Oh! World, and unfortunately for Kavanagh, his run ended there. Chris Winkler was victorious, and he was off to top 4. The top 4 had 2 established players playing against 2 underdogs. Both sides of the bracket had David vs Goliath matchups. Shane Scurry was able to overcome Chris Winkler and his Strike Ninja deck, sending the Team Scoop member to the finals. Chris Patel of Team Extreme took down Kamikaze's Steven Kanate, and the Canadian was able to get into the finals as well. The finals featured 2 players from 2 elite teams. It was a clash of US versus Canada. Patel was hoping to be the second Canadian to win a Shonen Jump title, while Scurry wanted to be the second player from Team Scoop to hold the title. The first game was very fast and very one-sided. Chris Patel used Thousand Eyes Restrict to take Shane's monster, then treated it for Mobius. Patel rode Mobius to victory since Scurry had no way to get over it. Second game had Scurry attacking with his small monsters, such as Sangan and Dekoichi. Chris Patel drew almost all monsters, and he had no way to protect himself from Scurry's onslaught of monsters, especially once Ashura Priest hit the board. Scurry took the second game. Game 3 was long. The game started with Scurry summoning Breaker and then attacking into Spade Reaper. He used Econ to destroy the Reaper. Scurry had Breaker blown away the next turn by Mirror Force. Patel started some of his own offense with Chaos Sorcerer, only for it to be outed by Scurry's own Sorcerer. The game went on for turns, with players just setting and passing. Scurry was careful to not overextend, and came in clutch with a Confiscation to discard Snatch Seal from Patel's hand. Scurry had almost 3,000 left life points to Patel, but it didn't matter in the end. The duel ended when Chris Patel actually decked out. He had no cards left in his deck, and conceded when he drew the final remaining card in his deck. Shane Scurry was able to win the tournament, and brought the second title to Team Scoop. Playing for an elite team, Scurry proved that he belonged with the elite, and made the most of his first top 8 finish. That does it for this episode, guys. Thank you for watching, and we hope you tune in for SJC Columbus 2006. That's the T for Magnitude, guys. Thanks for watching.